Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. We're delighted to have everybody here, and we're delighted to be here with Comptroller Peter Franchot, who's going to talk to us about the state of the economy in Maryland at this point in time, and then also answer any questions we may have about taxes, because it is indeed that time of the year for businesses. Joining us to co-sponsor this forum, I'm Jane Rediker with the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce, and my colleagues are here from our sister chambers, Allie Williams from the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, and Marilyn Balcom from the Gaithersburg-Germantown Chamber of Commerce.
Hey.
Margie Graff from the Rockville Chamber, and representing the board of the Wheaton-Kensington Chamber is Jeanette Feldner. So with that, thank you all for coming, and we'll turn it over to Comptroller Franchot. And then if you have questions at the end, either raise your hand or put them in the chat. It's a relatively small group, so I think we can manage it. So Peter, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be with you. And if something happens technologically, I'm going to have to jump up and go get my staff person. But I'm assuming everything's going to be smooth. And I really appreciate everybody spending a few minutes with me. There's a lot going on, and you know, you'll notice I have a little lapel button with the American flag and the Ukrainian flag, and I just can't emphasize how volatile the international global situation is as far as the economy, and the grim news that I look at, like you guys, that get up and read the New York Times and the Washington Post that are tossed up on my front lawn. And then I turn on MSNBC or CNN. It's unbelievably a complete and utter nightmare that's going on right now. So on that context, I'd just like to say, I have some good news. I have two bits of good news. And you know, I'm delighted to share it. A week ago, I chaired the Board of Revenue Estimates, which is the collaborative collegial approach towards estimating revenues for the legislature and the governor to spend. Normally, in many states, it's very partisan, Republican versus Democrat. Everybody's got their different budget numbers. In Maryland, we do it differently, and Republicans and Democrats do it together. We have confidence in our experts, and I am chair of that board, and announced a week ago yesterday at the meeting that we have a $7.5 billion one-time only surplus in the state of Maryland from our previous fiscal year, the fiscal year we're in that's closing shortly, and then the fiscal year starting July 1st. These are solid numbers, $7.5 billion, once again, one time only, not sustainable to put them into the operating budget, but eminently important as far as infrastructure and one-time situations. And that's tremendous amount of good news. In passing, as chairman of the committee, I said, you know, it might be good, given the Ukrainian situation and how upset everybody is with what Russia is doing. And I hear around the state concern from really good Marylanders who say, gosh, are gas prices going to go up a lot because of the invasion of Ukraine? So I just said casually, why don't we have a 90-day gas tax holiday? Our gas tax is high in Maryland. It's 36.4 cents per gallon of gas pumped. And to my surprise, not that I think people don't listen to me, but to my surprise, the governor an hour later said that he was in favor of the idea. And I suggested a 90-day gas tax holiday that would cost the state $250 million. But I said, that's really a one-time cost to get people through this international situation. And it's entirely affordable because we have $7.5 billion in surplus. So the governor jumped on and said, to his credit, yeah, great idea. Then I don't mean to act surprised, but the legislative leaders said, oh, we agree with the governor. So today, mere 8 days later, governor is going to sign at 2 o'clock a measure that is going to give, it's a 30-day gas tax holiday. I can fully believe it will be extended to be 90 days. And, you know, it went through with the speed of lightning. And furthermore, they allowed us to amend it so that we can deal with the large number of retail gas stations around the state that we have a very close relationship with because we regulate petroleum products. So we know these people. They're very skeptical about government. So they said, what about all this gasoline we have currently in our tanks that we've already paid the tax? The distributor pays the tax at the wholesale level, but we've paid the distributor when he delivered the gas. And now you guys are going to like advertise that we should be selling gas that is, instead of $4.10, it's $3.80. We can't eat that. So we put an amendment on that said we'll have immediate, instantaneous reimbursement for any gas that's being sold after 2 o'clock today, where there's a previous payment of gas tax made by the mom and pop gas station. And they trust us because, first of all, we're a competent agency. We do when we say we're going to do something, they can trust us. So I think you're going to see a very popular 30-day period and then extended into 90 days. You're going to see a lot of drivers from Virginia and Pennsylvania and Delaware and West Virginia coming in to get tax-free gas. And they're going to spend money elsewhere in Maryland. But those are 2 bits of good news: a $7.5 billion surplus, a completely affordable gas tax holiday, which is going to be exciting because it's a rare ray of sunshine in a very grim bunch of news that's going on around the world right now. I just also want to mention, in addition to the surplus, I chair the State Board of Trustees of the pension system. That's a $70 billion portfolio for our retired teachers and public employees and law enforcement, et cetera, at the state level. Historically, it's always been underfunded, always teetering on the point of, being in real trouble. I'd like to report now that it's well on its way to be fully funded. The AAA bond rating of the state of Maryland is solid as Gibraltar. And I have for 3 straight years extended the tax date for state payments, estimated tax payments to the state, from April 15th to July 15th. We're doing it this year for a 3rd year. And that has proven to be enormously popular with the small business community around the state because it allows them to get from the cold winter season into the summer season. And it's proven to be a real asset that each year is taken advantage of by 600,000 Maryland taxpayers. And it's about $1.5 billion, no interest, no penalty, no application necessary loan from the state of Maryland to small businesses. Let me stop there and just say that I think the future is bright for Montgomery County and frankly, also the Baltimore region, because we're going to have I think a reordering of the state's global economy after this Ukraine situation clarifies. I don't care which direction it goes in at this point. I think Russia will end up being a pariah country economically, somewhat like North Korea. I'm serious about this. I think we're at a pivotal point. And I think we're going to see a reordering of the global economy around countries that are at least semi-rational, and excluding Russia and North Korea. And that's going to require Maryland to make adjustments, but we're perfectly positioned. For example, up in Baltimore, Jim Davis, the wealthiest individual in the state of Maryland, by the way, has got a 3,500 acre project called Project Trade Point Atlantic. I happen to tour it. That is going to be a center of excellence for the global logistics transformation into the post-Ukraine global economy. Montgomery County and Prince George's are completely well positioned to take advantage of this intersection between technology and government, which this global logistics center up in Baltimore is going to be, I think, a leader in. We have all of the bones for both biotech and cybersecurity, but most importantly, that intersection on everything between technology and government. My agency, the Comptroller's Office, is almost completely transformed into a technological giant. I mean, we just processed our 1 millionth tax return this year. All of it's done electronically. When I first got elected, it was like 30% of tax returns were filed electronically. Now it's like 95%. And fraud-free, by the way, because of algorithms. That if I told you what the algorithms were, you'd have to shoot me, or I'd have to shoot you because it's top secret. But the point is, we don't get a lot of fraud in the Comptroller's Office. We used to historically, unfortunately. Let me stop there and take any questions that anybody has, but I do want to emphasize how much we respect the chambers all over the state, but particularly in Montgomery County, because the county is so robust and it's got so much fluidity and people moving in and moving out. Sometimes it's a little hard to keep our feet firmly on the ground, but Montgomery is a powerhouse and it's going to continue to be, I think, based on what's going on in the country right now. So stay tuned. I say this to my wife, our best days lie ahead, and she looks at me like I'm crazy. She looks at me a little bit like she looked at me when I said I'm running for governor. She said, "Why would you do that? Are you crazy?" So, but she's all on board, and things are thumbs up for me. And I'm delighted to be with you. And this is not a political call. This is just a government call about what we can do to be helpful to you specifically or generically. And happy to talk about my 41 years in Tacoma Park, the People's Republic of Tacoma Park. My home has been picketed over and over again by people that disagree with me. I remember clearly when they didn't want me to vote for stadiums up in Baltimore. So I had people, my neighbors, wonderful neighbors, saying, we're for schools, not stadiums. Well, the stadiums proved to be very successful. And 270, I had the same people, a lot of them picketing my house saying, don't do the American Legion Bridge, don't do the traffic congestion relief. Sorry, we have to do it. And we have to, mass transit I'm a champion for, but what about highways and bridges? We need to deal with that situation that we have. Otherwise, Montgomery's going to be strangled. Okay, let me stop there and take any questions. Jane, thank you again for organizing this. Alex, I see, is on the call. She's a Johns Hopkins grad who works with me on the personal staff, and she's twice as smart as I am. And then we also have Anna and Dennis, who are true experts on taxation. So have at it.
Thank you so much for the good news. We love hearing good news from the state, so that's really exciting. If you have a question, please just jump in and ask us. Ed, you need to unmute yourself. So Ed Finneran, Atlantic Online, please ask a question.
Good morning, Mr. Franchot. Nice to be with you again. I want to let everyone know that Peter was very accurate with sharing his phone number. I ran into a situation at the beginning of February. I emailed him within moments. A top manager in the tax return department got back to me, and I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
While the situation hasn't resolved yet, I'm hopeful that will soon. My question for you is, it's all been difficult for us managing with the pandemic and getting work done, dealing with employees remotely, and now encouraging them to come back physically into the office. I'm curious how that's affected the Comptroller's Office and how you've done with leading that.
Well, that's a good question, because it brings up the question of what should be mandated and what shouldn't be. We dropped the ball 2 years ago when government shut down a lot of businesses, particularly in the hospitality sector. Just shut them down. And we did not link that up, the federal and state government. We didn't link up the shutdown parts of our economy with relief. It took months to get it and it was always out of sync. It was too little or too much, too late. And so we suffered a lot of damage. We've lost, by our estimation, 40,000 small businesses have permanently shuttered over the last 2 years in Maryland. And every one of them, as far as I'm concerned, that's like a tragedy because, you know, they're each like a little ecosystem. But we're now in a kind of coming back together, not wearing masks, you know, assuming people are vaccinated, and that's fine. I'm all for that. I've been vaccinated and boosted and feel relatively safe, but I am very cautious as to what direction this is all going to take. And I'm not sure we're done with the virus yet. If we are, then we can come roaring back because, well, the surplus is attributable, since it's one time only, because it's attributable mostly to the Paycheck Protection Plan that benefited the private sector. And that was very important. I was kind of skeptical about it, frankly, Ed, for a while, but you asked about what is going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. If the virus is under control, we're going to be, you know, at the end of this year, doing the Charleston in the streets of Annapolis. I know I will, because the economy is going to come roaring back. It already has to a certain extent. But if the virus rears its ugly head, I think we've got to, you know, at least be aware that right now China and some parts of Europe are seeing something that we hope will not be replicated over here. But if it is, then I think we should basically get back to normal. Once again, even if it is, we don't see a big outburst, I think we need to continue to urge everybody to get vaccinated as much as possible. Because that, along with herd immunity, that's the way to avoid this, I think, down the road. But I don't know whether that answered your question, Ed. We see in our tax estimates, obviously, a tremendous amount of economic optimism. However, I will say this, since we're all kind of at the same level here, none of us are in the low wage earnings part of our economy. There are 500,000 families in Maryland that are not as lucky as all of us on the phone. They don't have any money. They don't have, I don't know, it's just incredible to me. These are single women or men with kids making less than 50,000 a year, or joint family income less than 100,000. And that group, I find, are living really, literally, not just week to week, but paycheck to paycheck, but day to day. They just don't have any money, and they work hard, most of them. And they need some relief. So I've suggested the $7.5 billion. If you want a one-time only use of $1 billion of that, I would, you know, ask me, and I can implement it within 24 hours. Send a $2,000 survival check to each of these 500,000 families. And I say that both out of just humanitarian stuff, because I said I live in Tacoma Park, right close to me. I see lines of people lined up for free food 2 or 3 times a week. And, you know, it's hard not to feel sorry for them. I always said, gosh, I wish I were governor and could just take $100 bills and go and give them $100 each and say, go buy your own food at groceries. Because the key thing to these survival checks, and what we never really factored into our budget revisions and budget estimating, was that we always knew about the multiplier effect, but we didn't realize that something like $1 billion and $2,000 survival checks to 500,000 families, that is a shot in the arm to our small businesses all over the state, almost instantaneously. So it's not like just strictly philanthropy and charity. It's also something that has a good effect on small businesses. I don't think that's what the legislature is going to end up doing. I think they're going to, I served there for 20 years. We love to spend your money. So I think they're going to spend it all, unfortunately. And I'm suggesting they should put at least 3 billion of the 7.5 billion into the rainy day fund, because we're just, once again, somewhat operating in the dark. But that's not what the legislature likes to do. And Governor Hogan, who I have a very good relationship with, is running for president. So watch out for that. Because, it's all of a sudden the fiscal moderation melts, and you have my real fear is that the 7.5 billion is put into the operating budget. That would be a travesty, because 2 years from now, we would have to deal with the chaos that would create. Anyway, I will be much shorter in next questions, and I'm sorry about that if that didn't address what you were talking about, Ed, but another question?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I see Elise, and then I see Vicky, and then Elise.
So you're officially announcing that Hogan is running for president?
Well, I'm just reporting on gossip. Us politicians, we love to gossip. So,
Okay.
He's a rational, functioning adult. I really like him. I've served 8 years with him. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but we serve on the Board of Public Works, which meets every 2 weeks and votes on average $440 million in contracts. I find him to be a refreshing, mature leader, I guess, is the way to describe him. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about him running in a Republican primary for president, and I do see some small adjustments in his normal way of thinking and talking about things. I didn't know. I don't mean to put him in. I don't mean to speak for him. That's for sure. But let's just assume that he would like to think about running for president. That causes a big change. And instead of talking about, for example, Baltimore City being a unbelievably important part of our state economically, culturally, and history, from a history perspective, and emphasizing the 57 neighborhoods that are just unbelievably interesting and unique, and how important to the state of Maryland the city of Baltimore is, instead of saying, look, there's some challenges up there right now, and we're going to, but there's a bright future with that Trade Point Atlantic project that I just talked about, that's right in Baltimore City, Baltimore County. Instead, we'd get stuff about, and I don't mean anything by this, but that we get all sorts of rhetoric and talk about violent crime in Baltimore. And I just find that to be a little bit of a different focus from what I've normally seen coming out of the administration. And it tends, we're all in favor of, I say all over the state, no public safety, no economy. And I have zero tolerance for police misconduct, but I also have zero tolerance for anybody who hurts anyone else. But, we have crime down in the Washington area. Nobody really ever talks about that. So all I'm suggesting is there's a little different emphasis these days. And I continue to be, as a Democrat, I continue to be a big fan of his leadership on public health, et cetera. But yeah, there's been a little bit of a change. I'm not announcing anything for him, though. God forbid.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicky. Did you have another question, or was that just, were you just poking me?
Okay, hopefully Elise has a tax-related question. I think she asked me one, so.
Well, thank you, Jane. Actually, I got a lot of my answers in that document that you sent me, Jane, that had a lot of the answers about whether, the PPP was taxable, about whether the grants, et cetera, that I got from the state of Maryland and Montgomery County were taxable, all of this relief that we got, which is really what I want to say. I want to say thank you to anybody I meet from the state of Maryland. I say thank you. You guys you stepped up to the plate and you helped all of us businesses. We wouldn't have survived without your help, and obviously the federal government help. And I'm really proud that everybody really did stand up and help. And so I wanted to say thank you. And I also wanted to say I live in Tacoma Park too, okay. Sitting here literally looking right at the gazebo as we speak, the center of town. And I am all for the $2,000 check, and I'm going to write to my representative and tell them that. I think that's a brilliant idea, and I think you're 100% right. The multiplier effect is really great. And if you do win, could you please do something about the unemployment system? Those are my three things.
Yeah, no, Elise, thank you for that, and God bless you. And I walk by the gazebo quite a bit when I'm taking individual walks around Tacoma Park. But the unemployment situation, unlike us, who have to deal with fraudsters all the time, asking for phony tax refunds, sending in information that is correct down to the penny. I mean, they've stolen so many people's financial identities. We're used to these guys. I don't mean to say they're all men, but wherever they are, they tend to be in Florida, Southern California, we find, and then we get a lot from overseas. But we play whack-a-mole with them, and we spend a lot of time strategizing. We have a $500,000 annual contract with the private sector company just to keep us on our toes as far as what the fraudsters are doing. The sister agencies in Maryland don't have any of that. So the Department of Labor, which is the vehicle for all the federal unemployment claims and the state unemployment claims, the money goes through the Department of Labor. They have handed out $14 billion in unemployment claims over the last 2 years. 14 billion. A big chunk of it is federal unemployment, but it goes through the Department of Labor. We're estimating that 2 billion of the 14 billion went directly to fraudsters. That's an astonishing figure. And most of the fraud was out of state and out of country, Russia and China. The problem is that the sister agencies don't have any experience with fraud. So when this first started to happen, what the fraudsters do, and I'm just riffing a little bit here, but what they tend to do is send you deliberately fraudulent, for example, unemployment claims that are obviously false. And the agency then gets all those and corrals them and puts them off to the side and begins to pat itself on the back saying, look at all the fraud we've prevented. But it's the next week that they come in with the real fraud, very sophisticated, very subtle, very camouflaged. But the fact that $2 billion in money that should have gone to people who were unemployed and in need, like Elise mentioned, who don't have, like we do, something to fall back on, no food, no money for food, rent, medicine, it's just themselves. That $2 billion went to folks out of state. So we've asked the governor and the legislature to set up a center for fraud detection for all agencies, and every agency needs to make an adjustment here. And I would urge, obviously, Montgomery County is vulnerable also. There's their county government, but it's an ongoing problem. And you mentioned unemployment. Once again, there's no malice over there. I know the secretary, and they're all well-intentioned, and it's the last thing they wanted to do was have these guys come and rob them blind, but that's what happened.
Okay, I'm gonna give props though to Peter and your people, because the answers to Elisa's questions came through Alex. So Alex got to the folks, and one of the question was, okay, we got all these local grants, are they taxable? And nobody around here could answer that question. And the question was, is the PPP taxable? So I see Alex has put some information in the chat for anybody to grab that provides you information on that. But that was very helpful, because we started getting a lot of questions as people put their taxes together, particularly on whether the grants from state and local government were going to be taxable. So thank you for that.
What about Anna or Dennis? Could you please chime in, Dennis, and just what are the questions you're normally getting from small business community about the relief funds, about the whether it's this year or next year, or this, taxes? What do they have to pay attention to?
Well, we haven't been actually getting a lot of questions on the PPP or the taxability of it. Mostly it's been on the processing of returns. It took a little longer to process some returns this year because of the last minute changes in the last session. But now that the money's been going out for the PTEs that did elections, that's kind of all calmed down and gone away. Typical things. I mean, a lot of PTEs, whoever prepares the returns forgets to put the K1s with it, or they forget to, the preparer forgets to give it to the individual member, and they file their return without the K1. And of course, we don't issue the refund if the K1's not there, because we don't know where the money was coming from. But that's the big questions we get periodically right now.
What about Anna? Is she on the call also?
Yes, good morning. Yes, just piggyback what Dennis said, we have not received a lot of questions about PPP. I'm believing that's the reason why is because we did an incredible job posting all of the information on our website. So it's fairly clear what we were doing with PPPs. So unless, as the relief said, that we decouple from the IRS, so far we have not received an abundance of questions about it.
And I think the questions that we got were not so much related to the PPP as they were to, I mean, our county had grants that it provided to businesses. And as a nonprofit, you know, I didn't think about it. As a nonprofit, we don't have to worry about that. But a lot of our businesses got some of the grants. There was a shuttered, and the state had a shuttered venue grant. So the list on your website that helped people understand how you could file that. My accountant does it all, but all the details of it that some of our smaller businesses didn't understand. So I think that was very helpful. So I thank you.
So Jane, you know, years ago, I was the accidental comptroller and I beat William Donald Schaefer in a statewide election. Nobody expected it. I was an English major in college, so I'm not exactly a tax expert, but here I am, the elected comptroller 16 years ago. And my wife, once again, who is not particularly high on politics, said after I won, she said, well, I didn't expect you to win, but tell me again, what is the comptroller? And I said, well, dear, I'm the chief fiscal officer of the state. I'm in charge of the state's financial books. And this is a true story. Her response to me at the kitchen table was, God help the state of Maryland if you're in charge of the books. And as an English major, I have always surrounded myself by solid, wonderful staff people. We have 1,150 people. The mantra we have every day is respect the taxpayer, respond to the taxpayer, get results for the taxpayer. But thank goodness I have them to pass on your questions to, because it's obviously a complicated economy that we're dealing with. But yes, I don't mean to be self-deprecating, but why not be self-deprecating?
Indeed. Well, given that's questions, anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Franchot. I appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. If you only had one more paper delivered to your house, you'd have known that the headline in a paper this morning was that the total fraud number is 163 billion, which is a little disconcerting from a taxpayer standpoint. So I guess we got hit for 2 billion, and the gross number is 163 billion. But just
well, we know, Mike, we know that because the people that used to try to commit fraud against us, we don't see as much of them because they're all moved over to, frankly, unemployment, and then Medicaid is the other program that's just getting looted.
Well, I'm pretty sure that both myself and my wife are now currently on unemployment, but no one's sending the checks to us. So, but two quick thoughts on the $7 billion. My first thought would be is that you should probably return some of it to the people that gave it to you. And in that is probably very unlikely to happen. I would suggest that we have an infrastructure problem in this state and spend some money on our roads and bridges. I drive around a lot in Montgomery County, Ashton, Olney. The roads are horrendous. Beltsville, it's just terrible. So, well, certainly some help to the people you mentioned earlier would be warranted, but if we don't have an infrastructure, we don't have an economy. So I would spend some money on our roads.
Forgive me for talking about what I would do if I were not the comptroller. Let's just imagine that. I've said over and over again, the first 3 months, I would fix every pothole on every state road. I would pick up all the trash along state roads, particularly the dead deer that I passed week after week in the same spot. And I would ask every state agency to do what we do in the comptroller's office, answer the phone within 60 seconds with somebody that can help you navigate whatever it is that's frustrating you. I think it's less, Mike, a matter of money. I think it's more a matter of just leadership that focuses the state bureaucracy and to a lesser extent, the county bureaucracy on the fact that we are trying to be constructive partners to the private sector, not Dr. No. And I couldn't agree with you more about the infrastructure. The giving money back to the residents is a little different because most of the $7.5 billion came from the federal government's relief plans. It didn't come from economic activity. And and part of it came from, obviously, as I mentioned, the moving the tax date from April to July. But most of all, I agree with you that whatever we spend should not be just mainlined into the state's economy, because that's a pathway to bankruptcy for the state.
Well, regardless, it's still taxpayer money, whether the federal government funneled it to you or not. It still came out of the taxpayer's pocket.
I agree.
So, and as long as you're mentioning, I think answering the phone would be awesome. This is just a pet peeve. Try calling Easy Pass for service sometime.
I did for months.
Exactly. There you go. Have they got back to you yet?
Well, finally, I had to Bigfoot them, and
you mentioned your name.
It is a huge problem because I voted against the $273 million contract to get a new Easy Pass vendor 3 years ago. And I voted against it. It was a 2-to-1 vote on the Board of Public Works. And I said, guys, this is not going to work. This new company, you have not gotten guarantees from them that they can actually implement. Not that the Easy Pass was perfect 3 years ago, but it was functional. Now it isn't. And frankly, getting someone on the phone is almost impossible. But if you do have an ongoing Easy Pass thing, and just to calm you down and make sure you stay mentally well, give me some information, and our people can probably help. But it's a wild west right now. People are getting billed $5 for a toll that they missed and a $50 penalty. And now we're talking about giving them amnesty, but we're not really giving them amnesty, and nobody's answering the phone. So it's a typical example of what government should not be identified with, which is incompetence. And I'm happy I voted against the thing. I'm just sorry I lost. We now are in a situation where we have a new head of the Department of Transportation, someone I served with in the legislature. And he was the one who originally negotiated this contract 3 years ago. He's very sensitive on it. He's very defensive. He claims that it's the citizens' fault. The citizens didn't renew their Easy Pass or put their credit card on correctly. That was my problem. I think the credit card got switched. But it's just too bad, because it's a real sore point with a lot of very well-meaning citizens who don't want to be, we don't want to be in a situation where we haven't paid our tolls. So we want to pay our tolls, but then we don't want to pay these $50 charges on top of it, because that didn't happen necessarily because of the citizen. It's probably more attributable to the system, government system. So yeah, we're actually struggling with that right now. And I brought it up at the last Board of Public Works meeting, and it's it continues to be a bad situation, Mike, or whoever asked that.
That was Mike. Brian Simmons has his hand up. Brian, you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Franchot. Thank you for taking the time to meet with everybody today. My question is related to cybersecurity. As a representative from ICM Cyber, what is the state of Maryland doing to protect small business owners and residents alike from cyber attacks today? You know, since COVID hit, and especially since the Russia-Ukraine incident has kicked up, we've seen a major uptick in attempted cyber attacks. And as you were just speaking with EasyPass and finding a vendor that has great customer service, is very responsive and open to communicating and working with the residents of the state of Maryland, what are we doing to protect our residents and small business owners from those cyber attacks and keeping everyone safe?
Frankly, I don't know. I mean, I'm just being honest. I don't know. I toured NSA a month or so ago and was amazed at what they have. You know, they have $8 billion in construction underway right now in their Fort Meade campus. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Talk about a pathway into the future. But as far as your specific question, we have this unbelievably wonderful person who heads up all of our cybersecurity, David Hildebrand. He's not on the call. You know, all these guys in cybersecurity are kind of, you know, they don't wear coats and ties, I'll tell you that. Yeah, this is like a new sector. So I'm not aware of anything specifically the state is doing other than that we're unfortunately being, not so much in the comptroller's office, but other agencies are ill-equipped right now. And as far as small businesses, protecting yourself, I'm happy to have a specific gathering with, Alex can arrange this with David Hildebrand, and he can brief everybody on how you protect yourself individually, how you protect your small business, what you might anticipate, who are the companies that are you may represent who can add layers of protection. We cannot do it in government. We don't have the capacity other than individuals like David Hildebrand. We have to, I mentioned this $500,000 annual contract we have with a private sector company. We have to have that in order to be up to date as far as what the fraud is. But I don't know whether that you're talking about what's going on in Ukraine. I'm sure there are all sorts of cyber warfare going on, and I'm not saying there isn't cyber warfare already in the U.S. That just isn't something that's on my to-do list right now, but would love to look at it if you think the chambers around the state would benefit from it.
Yeah, I think there's been a major uptick recently, and I know it's starting to concern a lot of people. My company has seen cyber insurance premiums rise in the last 2 years, anywhere from 7% for small businesses all the way up to 40% for some of the larger enterprises in the country. And so I think that would be very beneficial for a lot of the small and medium business owners in the state of Maryland to learn some of the best practices and even some of the technology tool sets that are out there to help lower those cyber insurance premiums and help keep the economy moving.
Well, maybe we could have a forum, not with people like me who, it's above my pay level, but actually get some of these, would be happy to help assemble a panel that you guys could really benefit from, I think. But
yeah, we can work with your office on that.
yeah, I'd like that. I like that idea because as I noted at the beginning, I think we're going to have a rearrangement of the global economy, and that's going to cause a lot of angst amongst countries that are right now we're allowed into the chicken house and they're eating all the chickens and looking at us like, why did you let me in? Yeah, we did.
Well, it's interesting
we
because the legislature.
We let you in because we thought you were like rational people. Instead, you go and invade Ukraine and bomb women and children. So I don't know, maybe I'm a little forceful on this, but I'm about to send a letter out to the private sector in Maryland, just as your comptroller, saying, I hope everybody is following the lead of European and the US government in burning your financial bridges with Russia. I was about to called DLA Piper, which is a huge international firm based in Baltimore. Because my son called me from California and said, "Dad, do you know they have an office in Moscow?" I said, "No." That kind of upset me, but then I just read yesterday that they closed the office, which is the right thing to do. Because, we obviously can't get into nuclear war with somebody, but I think we're going to see something pretty beneficial to the United States with this redesign of what I call the global economy, where we're dealing with countries that are somewhat on the level. Everybody else can go pound sand as far as I'm concerned. I feel like I'm like a congressman or something. I'm not. I'm just the comptroller, but Maryland has the highest, I think it used to have the highest average family income of any state in the country. We're not like, we're a really impressive state economically and geographically because of where we're positioned and because of the port of Baltimore and the airport, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of running room ahead of us. And I think it's appropriate for us to speak out and say things from time to time to each other, reminding us that, we don't always have to grovel in front of these dictators. Now I probably lost all your votes, but anyway, that's okay.
Okay, back on the cyber, we'll work with your office to see what we can put together.
Well, cyber,
Yeah, because I think the legislature is looking at cyber right now, but not from the point of view of what we're talking about. They're more looking about how to protect individual customers' information from some of our businesses. So it's a completely kind of a spinned around way to look at that. So we have about maybe 10 more minutes at most. Bill Commoners, question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Thanks for coming. I have a question in terms of the spirit of public service that you have inspired in the Comptroller's office in terms of being responsive to people and so forth. How do we expand that to the rest of the state and eventually county government? Because with so much of people being told to try to do things online, there are lots of things that just don't make sense to be done that way, that need the give and take of a conversation with a real human being who wants to help you solve a problem. How do we bring that mindset and implementation of it to the other agencies of the state?
Well, I suppose there's a good position somewhere for dictators because, dictators can get things done. And to a little extent, I'm kind of a little dictator because I'm the comptroller and I've got an agency that responds to me. But I think the key thing is just to do what you guys do in management, which is, you have to look at government and make sure that they have the resources and the leadership to implement good management 101 things. We call it the 3 R's. Respect the taxpayer, respond to the taxpayer, get results for the taxpayer. And I think that's something that's missing from rest of state government and local government. So there are a couple of things that could be done. I think we need to do a top to bottom review of the state tax system because it's obviously out of sync a little bit with the modern economy. And I'm not suggesting that I'm one way or another on cutting taxes or raising taxes. I'm just saying we need to study it at the state level because I hear a lot from businesses that we're not competitive. And then at the county level, we have to make sure that we remove all of this arrogance and self-empowerment that permitters and regulators at the county level, particularly my home county, your county, Montgomery County, I find to have some of the regulators are just completely inflated with their own power. And it's unacceptable. They should be constructive junior partners to you guys in making sure that what you're doing is safe, but making sure they're not getting in the way. And they certainly shouldn't be acting as if they have the power to unilaterally make decisions. And I hear a lot of that, and not just in Montgomery, but around the state as I go, that the local regulation has really become a problem. And so I think the top to bottom review of local regulation and making sure that it's a positive and not a negative And I'm not suggesting that all local regulation is. I'm just saying that it's gotten a little bit out of hand. And so I think that would be beneficial. But once again, the top-down stuff, it's difficult. We have to work with everybody. And but let me just sum up by saying Doug Duncan was the head of my transition committee. I haven't seen Doug for a long time, but he was a really successful, I thought, county executive. And when he headed up my transition committee, he said, the last thing you want to do is go in and act as if you know what you're talking about. You need to go in and meet with your division directors in the comptroller's office and tell them that you're going to get them the resources to do their job. And after they feel comfortable with you, then they will do the job of customer service that you want them to do. But you can't by fiat from Mount Olympus order people to do something like customer service. You have to, have a management team approach. And you guys do it in the private sector all the time. Bill and others who, are, it's not easy, but I think it's doable with good leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I was just going to comment. First of all, it's great to see you again, Comptroller Franchot. I'm Allie Williams from the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce. Thank you and your team and the legislators for the extension of the Maryland tax. That's helping a lot of small business. I love the idea of trying to support those less fortunate with a survivor check, but if that was ever going to happen, maybe a voucher program where they could get food vouchers rather than a check, because that might lead to, buying things that aren't food related and helping them with those necessities. Just an idea. But also, I think as far as the leadership, it's changing the culture. And I really think that there could be great customer service in all agencies with a culture shift. Like you said, you hire those managers that can create that culture. You create a tidal wave. Those that want to ride it will, and those that don't will have to find other work. And I just think it's not easy, but it's just that culture. So if you were elected governor and those agencies would follow the lead of customer service and working with the citizens of Maryland to answer questions and have that 60-second phone call, that would be brilliant. And as William said, it's very difficult to complete forms online for folks who are a little bit older and they don't have that technology. They need the skills to be able to do that. It's nearly impossible. I fill out forms for my children to attend University of Maryland and FAFSA and other things. It's nearly impossible. And I feel like I'm a little bit somewhat tech savvy, but just a little bit of ease and help for those to, address the issues and problems that they have, and having an agency to call on and an answer from somebody fairly instantly is just something that would be fantastic for our great state.
Great. Thank you for that, Ellie. And you guys could help me because the governor's going to sign this gas tax holiday bill at 2 o'clock today. So what time is it now? It's 12 o'clock. So 2 hours he's going to sign it. If you could just lean out your windows and take a photo of what the gas station in your area is charging right now per gallon, and then lean out at 2:05 p.m. and take a picture and send it to me, I would be grateful, because you're going to see the genius of the private sector. People say, oh, we don't trust the gas station owners. They're going to pocket the money. You're just full of baloney. Prices are not going down. No, prices are going to go down. And it's going to be significant. And woe be it to the gas station that doesn't do the right thing. And once again, there's some confusion out there. We have informed everybody that they are not going to be left holding the bag, that we will send them a check for any gas sold after 2 p.m. that they have paid a tax on. They'll get that back. So we're going to see what happens in the capitalist economy that we live in. I really think that it's going to be self-policing. And first of all, fundamentally, I think the small business owners are not predators who are going to take something and just pocket it. I mean, that's pretty cynical. So, but help me if you can. And if you see a gas station that's actually gone from $4.10 down to $3.75 in the wink of an eye, let me know.
I wish I had waited. I was 409 this morning when I filled up. So
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I apologize for that. But see, your gas station owner's already paid the tax on it. You're not, you know, he's charging you for something he's already paid, or she's already paid the distributor. So some of them are like, hey, you know, God, Franchot, are you really going to get the money back to us? Yeah, I'm going to get the money back to them because that's what we do.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to be filling up on the way to my late lunch this afternoon, because I looked at my gauge this morning and said it's time. So if I can hold out a little bit longer until after 2 o'clock, I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
201.
201.
201. I will do that. So, well, we are at, my clock says 12 o'clock exactly. So I want to thank Comptroller Peter Franchot for joining us this morning, and for the good news that he provided, and for helping represent, or not represent, but understand that business is the engine of the state, and understand that we need to encourage business and do things and have policies that make business thrive, because that'll make it possible to do everything else that we want to do in the state. So thank you again for joining us. And I know we've had some things in the chat. We'll have the video of this available for anyone to follow up later if you have any questions. And again, his staff is very responsive when we reached out with questions. So reach out as much as you can and use that phone number. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Very
Thank
informative.
you.